Da da ba ba. Welcome back on YouTube. God. That's true though. I do like this better. Suckers. Probably be back on Twitch or something. Cord from my phone all jacked up. And there's nothing I like less than I'm jacked up. Do we not feel like working today? It's always. Alright. Let's play some games. How's everybody doing? Everybody good? Sometimes just gotta blast out some kneecaps, you know? You fool. Everybody doing good? No stress, all that good shit. Maybe, maybe not. I feel like my camera in OBS looks a hell of a lot better than it does. Yeah, maybe not. Not sure why it's telling me my audio bitrate's fucked, but that's cool. Super duper cool. Man, it feels good to sit down and like be at home. And that cheddar, doo-doo. One down, pass it around, get shot in the butt by me. Terrible resolution. Yeah, see there. Think cool if I would have seen that before. Yeah. Thing's gone. I have so much money and no buy station. Hello. My dude's just saving or bank stuff later, you know. New waffle. Terrible. Just fun to kill you, my friend. Come on. I will never know how the fucking. Okay. Got him. He's dead. He's gonna get me. Bye. Motherfucker. Playing a little too, my dude. You may. Pretty good. Okay, one more of these and then we'll plan something. I'm tired of getting squatted. Very frustrating. Mm. Mm-hmm. It being so shitty. Wildly infuriating. fucking UAV. Okay. Maybe nobody expects it because it's such a bad idea. Holy shit. Let's clip that bad boy. Fucking knew it, dude. Oof. Gross, dude. Disappointing. Wow.
Tonight, new video has been released in the case against so-called QAnon shaman as he faces charges for his role in the Capitol insurrection. CNN's Brian Todd is covering all the angles for us. Brian, tell us more about these videos and why they were made public.
They were made public, Wolf, because the judge is frankly fed up. Tonight, one of the most visible rioters on January 6th seems to have gotten squarely on the bad side of the judge in his case.
We won the day.
Tonight, Jacob Chansley, the so-called QAnon shaman who wore a headdress and face paint and carried a spear inside the Capitol, has been called out by U.S. District Judge Royce Lamberth. The court today releasing two videos, which the judge believes back his assertion in court papers that Chansley, quote, blatantly lied during an interview with 60 Minutes Plus. This is what Judge Lamberth believes was a lie.
Police were waving people into the building.
Judge Lamberth believes this video, showing rioters breaking windows, then panning over to a shot of Chansley walking through a door, shows Chansley was lying when he claimed police waved him in.
And that shows you that this defendant, Jacob Chansley, has really angered this judge and has really compromised his own credibility in the mind of the judge.
Judge Lamberth had already accused Chansley and his attorney of doing that 60 minutes plus interview without the court's permission. Chansley's lawyer claimed they were not trying to be deceitful. Chansley has pleaded not guilty to 6 charges, including violent entry and disorderly conduct in the Capitol attack.
That dude's going to fucking prison, bro.
Judge Lamberth recently ruled that Chansley is too dangerous to release and has to stay in jail pending his trial.
It's only a matter of time. Justice is coming.
One analyst says even though Chansley's not accused of violent behavior against others, his high profile as a symbol of the riot puts added pressure on prosecutors.
The prosecutors have to understand that the public is watching every move they make in this case. And so the notoriety of certain defendants is something they have to take into consideration, and they better make darn sure that they have charged these people appropriately and that they come away with convictions, including on Jacob Chansley.
This comes as the Washington Post reports that the U.S. Army, in the days just ahead of January 6th, pushed to deny the D.C. government's request for a National Guard deployment on the 6th. The Post obtained an internal draft Army memo saying the U.S. military shouldn't be required to help law enforcement with traffic and crowd control unless more than 100,000 demonstrators were expected on the National Mall that day.
Certainly not consistent with past practice. During my time as police chief in Washington, D.C., we utilized the National Guard quite frequently to handle crowd control as well as traffic.
The state of conservative comedy in 2021. Let's take a look at what.
I don't know where you find this many farmers of color, but they did, and 5.2 billion are being allocated exclusively for colored farmers. Farmers of color, farmers of color. Roll the tape.
We begin today's show looking at a major provision in President Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill that aims to address decades of discrimination against Black, Hispanic, Native American, and Asian American farmers who've historically been excluded from government agricultural programs. The American Rescue Plan sets aside $10.4 billion for agriculture support and allocates about half the funds to farmers of color who are, quote, subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice because of their identity as members of a group, unquote. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights confirmed as long ago as 1965 The U.S. Department of Agriculture discriminated against black farmers, but little was done to address.
I wonder if these guys that are making fun of the situation are aware of a system called slavery and a lack of reparations. Well, sorry, there were reparations just to the white slave owners and not the black people that were recently freed, or Reconstruction, sharecropping. I mean, numerous things that have happened in American history that literally, personally brutalized farmers of color. I don't know if that's I mean, I guess that there's just like that didn't happen
100 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, it happened 100 years ago. Okay, let's enslave your family for 100 years and see how you fare. Okay, just saying, like.
The folk, man. What the fuck, dude?
Like, oh, it happened 100 years ago. Also, it's not 100 years ago. It is literally an ongoing problem if you don't address the issues.
Most happy about the new policy. These people. So yeah, I'm gonna buy a plow, man.
I'm gonna plant that corn.
Go get a John Deere. Barack Obama, mother. I'm the president of plowing that ass. You.
I thought the last thing they would want to do was be farmers. Wasn't that?
That's so bad, dude. What the fuck? That was so bad that it turned around to be funny again. What the fuck? Yo, I've never seen someone be more white painfully while trying to do AAVE than Steven Crowder, dude. That was a 360. Like, he wanted to be funny. It was not funny on its own, but it was so bad that like it turned around for me. This is literally boomer racism, okay? I don't know what we just saw. I don't know how to describe it. It's like old people think that this shit's funny. 65-year-old people think this is like, yeah, you see that? He's imitating a black. Every black person is a rapper. Let's watch it again.
People. So yeah, I'm gonna buy a plow, man.
I'm gonna plant.
It feels like this person has never been around black people. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, you literally have only seen black people in movies, I think, in like very weird movies. Honestly, if you find Steven Crowder to be funny, like you might be entitled to some compensation because, you know, you sucked too much asbestos when you were growing up. Like, there's no fucking way that anyone looks at this and goes, this is fucking funny, dude. This is fucking good, dude.
I'm gonna plant that corn.
Go get a John Deere. Barack Obama, mother. I'm the president of plowing that ass. You.
I thought the last thing they would want to do was be farmers. Wasn't that a big problem for hundreds of years?
Yeah.
Isn't that why Arsenio Hall called himself the urban man's Johnny Carson?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, they kept going. Okay. Oh, shit. It was getting worse. Remember Chatters? 30 seconds ago, you said, don't play that clip back. Turns out I spared you an additional bumper that was 2 minutes long for them to literally go into straight up. Black people did not want to be slaves. Okay, there's a difference between being a slave and being a farmer.
Are people lining up out in the middle of cornfield, Iowa for new dunks?
How would you prove this, by the way? Like, how would you prove that you've been discriminated
You don't
against?
have to. You just
Well, I didn't
say
get that
so.
loan. Sir, you had no credit. Well, that should not have stopped me from getting the...
Bro, these people want to be oppressed so bad, dude. Like, it's so obvious. They're literally jealous. Like, you can sense it. Come on, dude. Why is the... Dude, I'm the real person that needs, like, I'm a white podcaster. I'm the one who's, like, actually faced depression. Come on, dude, just give me some money. Acknowledgement would go a long way. Come on.
The loan.
I planted a Hennessy tree, but it's not growing.
Well, technically it did grow, but that shit ain't XO.
I put it in the ground.
I planted a VSOP XO.
Why is this shit acting so janky, dude?
Oh, tree. I'm getting in some niche esoteric cognac humor, motherfucker.
Don't white people just go to their neighborhoods and build urban farms and ruin their communities? Isn't that what white
how it works
do?
in Detroit? Like,
Yeah.
Turns out the soil content is a high level of meth.
Yeah, crazy. Whoa.
Wow.
Wait, what? Wait, is he saying like black people are making meth too in the fucking farm?
The high
What?
level of meth.
Yeah, crazy. Whoa.
Wow, I didn't know.
That
I think he mixed up the jokes there for a second. I thought that was white people shit. Like, did I misunderstand what he's saying? Yo, he's mixing up his racisms, guys. What the fuck? If you're gonna do stereotypes, at least get it right. Okay? You need a singular brain cell to be able to do like racist humor, okay? Black people dumb. Black people rap music. Blah, blah, blah. Right? In order to fuck up that thing, you need to lose that remaining brain cell if you turn around and literally say like, oh, black people like cooking meth. I mean, fuck, I don't know. Steven Crowder's also unironically anti-weed in 2021. I mean, he's such a fucking goober, dude. He is the ultimate dweeb. Like, what a fucking dork, dude. That's all I got for Steven Crowder. You're such a dork. Steven Crowder operates like a Karen. Like, he is literally a Karen. But because he agrees, or conservatives look at that and go, oh, well, like, this guy has the same opinion that I do, so he must be funny. I'm going to laugh at the shit that he's saying, including, like, the racist stuff that he's saying. It's pretty funny to me, because I think racism is poggers, or whatever the fuck people are saying in his audience. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, look, I love dark humor. I love edgy humor. I think you can certainly have racialized humor that's fucking hilarious if it's well done. But it comes from a place of knowledge, right? If you don't understand the subject matter that you're covering, if you don't have a deep understanding of the subject matter you're covering, you're just gonna point at it and go, haha, this is funny. Or you're gonna rely on like old ass fucking tropes. It's like making a joke. It's just, I don't even want to get into it any further. Like, I don't want to talk about like racial stereotypes like that. It's not, what he's doing in that situation is just like, this is my worldview. I think black people are this way, and I'm just going to keep fucking, playing really just shitty fucking tropes because I have no jokes of my own. I can't come up with anything. I can't come up with any material. So I'm just basically doing the racism version of what's the deal with airplane food? Do you understand what I'm saying? He's just being himself. That's the best way that I can try to describe this situation as someone who is a fan of comedy and also even, laugh at edgy humor from other white dudes that do like edgy ass fucking jokes. Oh, this is what I wanted to really talk about. The real fucking shit, dude. The real issues. Let's watch real fucking comedy, which is conservatives being conservatives. Now, we've already talked about this, but there is perhaps no better recognition that we have returned back to the normalcy of losing our minds over monotonous, boring stories and the outrage cycle back into being like full effect. There's no better representation about that revolves around return to normalcy than Tucker Carlson trying to create a new outrage cycle around wet ass pussy. Them culture vandals censoring many art forms. Let's take a look at what this new wet ass pussy
What?
is about.
Well, we learned last night at the Grammy Awards. Here's a clip of the only portion we could play you.
I'm built differently. I'm built differently. I'm built differently. Yeah, I'm built differently. You don't wanna smoke, so ask for the chicken. I just made a big bag. I just brought a Bentley. Always on your mind. I be living rent free. The girl wanna fuck, even though she just met. I'm built differently. I'm built.
No more Dumbo. It's too filthy.
What?
We get
Dude, you are such a fucking nerd, dude. If you look at something like that and go, I can't believe that the entertainment industry is doing some degeneracy again, when like literally all art has always been degenerate forever. I don't know what to tell you. Just like, this Monet guy started drawing naked women that were commoners. Back in my day, the only women that were supposed to be naked were angels. I find this to be distasteful. Why are we now drawing naked prostitutes?
Okay. The frame rate on this game is so bad. Jesus.
Impressionists. What are they talking about? What do they want to do? Seriously upset with how things are going in the art world. Are they doing art or are they doing degeneracy masquerading as art? Like, what are you fucking, are you in the 17th century? Like, what the fuck's going on? Like, is you being upset at this is so dumb. It's just so fucking dumb. Equating this to art, Pepega, dude, this is, whether you admit it or not, whether you can say it's commodified to the fucking 10th degree or not, doesn't matter. It's still fucking art. You're consuming it. It's made for your consumption. It doesn't have to be like high art. It's still fucking art, you dumbasses. It's music. Music is literally art. You call that music? Again, guys, just because you personally do not appreciate it does not change the reality that it is absolutely designated as art, okay? And the example I gave you is literally an example from history in the way that the art world originally, or the intelligence.
It'd be great if this shit would stop fucking buffering every 4 seconds. It's so goddamn annoying, dude.
Originally regarded a new wave of fucking painters that were changing the norms of sexuality and human bodies in the way that they are demonstrated on a fucking canvas. I'm literally giving you a 5-head art take that, you know, if you understood art history, that is a direct comparison to what is going on here. And it's degenerate. Okay, it is degenerate. It's hedonistic. It is made primarily for immediate consumption. Okay, it tickles your fancy by reinforcing like the primal urges that you feel. Okay, but it's still fucking art. I'm sorry that it's not Christian dad rock, Tucker Carlson. Okay, I'm sorry that the art that you wanted to see at the Grammys is not fucking again, like garage bands that talk about Jesus Christ our Lord and Savior, or whatever the fuck this psychopath is into. The Nazis to get pissed because visitors to their art museums prefer the degenerate art, which was new, different, and interesting instead of the good trad art. Tucker's on this exact same shit. Exactly. Nazis had a very interesting point of view on what they consider to be degenerate art as well. So it's understandable that a fucking modern contemporary fascist would have a similar point of view. Whatever.
Candace Owens is the author of Blackout and the host of Candace. She joins us today. Candace Owens, thanks so much for coming on. It's hard not to conclude they're intentionally trying to degrade our culture and hurt our children.
I mean, absolutely, Tucker. I mean, Dr. Seuss, gone. Mr. Potato Head, problematic, not enough genders available. We've seen going through this supermarket as a traumatizing experience. We lost Aunt Jemima last year. We lost Land O'Lakes butter last year.
Zero fucking people were like, we need to stop Aunt Jemima. Like, zero people said that. The only people that talked about fucking Aunt Jemima and like Land O'Lakes butter or whatever, or Mr. Potato Head and his potato dick, have been conservatives, are conservatives. They're just literally having a conversation in their own circle. It's just conservatives back and forth talking about how crazy liberals are. Like, zero liberals are like, oh my God, I'm so glad that fucking Aunt Jemima doesn't exist anymore. It's so dumb.
We lost Uncle Ben and his rice last year because everything is so traumatizing for children to look at. But this spectacle, virtually what we were looking at last night was a lesbian sex scene being simulated on television, and this is considered feminist. It's iconic, it's forward, it's progressive, it's the way the world's going, Tucker, and if you don't see that, it's because you're a bigot. You don't understand. This is the way the world needs to go. I 100% agree with you in the assessment that this feels more sinister.
Yeah, why can't we go back to the old days when like rock musicians talked about fucking 14-year-old girls? Like, why can't we go back to the good old days? You know what I mean? When music was about having sex with a fucking 14-year-old girl. I don't understand it, bro. brother. Why the fuck can't we listen to real music, brother? I mean, how many songs are out there about like fucking 17-year-olds, dude? Christine 16 by Kiss.
This is starting to me to seem like it's not even
Like it is. You know what's funny about this? What's really funny about the situation is that like conservatives have demonstrated unironically the fucking need for music like Wet Ass Pussy, because the entirety of the conservative side of the political spectrum showcase that they don't understand that pussies are supposed to be wet. So I'm glad that music like WAP is showing a basic biological function of reproduction that conservatives have never fucking seen. And from that respect, this is art. Okay, there you go. It's not only art made for your consumption, but there is a lesson there.
The world needs to go. I 100% agree with you in the assessment that this feels more sinister. This is starting to me to seem like it's not even left or right. It's not a political issue. This seems like an attack on American values, American traditions, and you're actually actively trying to make children aspire to things that are grotesque. This is not about diversity anymore, Tucker. It's about perversity. No. We are celebrating perversity in America.
They're trying to degrade us. I mean, if you think about
yeah, they're trying to degrade our culture. They're trying to degrade our culture. They're trying to degrade our culture. Like, what is our culture, dumbass? What is American values? We're a penal colony of degenerate criminals, okay? That's how we fucking started. What do you mean? Like, I don't even understand what this fucking take is, okay?
All the energy that our professional class expends trying to extinguish political views they disagree with, and you've been the target of this. We have too.
I mean, it's definitely not suitable for kids. Dude, it's not for kids. I don't understand. Since when is like art made for consumption supposed to be for fucking kids? It's not Thomas the Tank Engine, okay, idiot? What? 10-year-olds are not supposed to be consuming the fucking Grammys. Like, what are you talking about? I'm sorry. I actually took the time out from watching my favorite juicer to go and watch the Grammys. I really need to figure out who won Best Tropical Latino Music Producer. I'm really rooting for whatever. Fucking can't name one. I don't listen to music. I'm the worst person to talk about this because I literally do not listen to music.
No energy is spent at all trying to contain pornography, which is literally everywhere online, and not just people having sex, but like stuff that probably kind of hurt your brain if you looked at enough of it. And it's just everywhere, but no one ever says a word about it. For real, what does that tell you about their goals?
Actually, they say many words about it. They call this great. They say this is fabulous. That this is the stuff that children should be aspiring towards. So at the same time, Tucker, that we have...
Yeah, that's like Wet Ass Pussy is actually a fucking... Wet Ass Pussy is literally about... It's a how-to guideline for what children should do. That's what that song is actually.
Kids that are not learning hard academics anymore in school, right? Forget about mathematics and science. You can trust the science, you can trust Dr. Fauci, but you have these kids learning about critical race theory. They're learning that they should aspire to people like Cardi B. You see that fundamentally we are seeing the destruction of American...
Bro, this is literally just a word salad. She is just gargling fucking random words. She's just tossing random words out that are like loosely... She's playing word association with leftist concepts, hoping that it fucking sticks. Oh, what's happening with Wet Ass P word is this is critical race theory. How is this critical race theory, man? Like, I can't understand this. She's just fucking ad-libbing right now.
Values, American principles. And it's terrifying. I think parents should be terrified that this is the direction that our society is heading towards. And again, we are weakening America. That's really what we should be talking about. This is a weakening of American society. We are setting the stage, and it feels like...
Bro, if you're fucking screeching about a musical performance at the fucking music show for adults and talking about how this is degenerating American culture, you're a fucking idiot, okay? You're right. We are literally fucking weak. We are too weak that this is the most popular news broadcast, and that's what you choose to spend your time on. Again, completely made up, completely fabricated, ridiculous, idiotic outrage culture. And it's basically to tell 75-year-olds like black women are rubbing their pussies on one another on television, and that's terrifying, and it's destroying America. It's like, no, it's not. It's just a fucking song. Okay, jackass, this is not touching American culture and ruining American culture, whatever the fuck that might be.
We are looking at corrosion, like we are about to see the end of the empire.
It's just conservative identity politics is what they're doing.
America cannot survive. It cannot be sustained under these sorts of values and principles.
So I mean, this is personal for you. You just had a son.
I mean, Hassan, Cardi B openly admits she refused to let her daughter hear or watch the song as a parent. Okay, but I never said this is for mass consumption, you fucking idiot. What the fuck are you saying? Did I literally say, if I ever have a child, I'm gonna make them fucking sit there and forcibly get them to watch this? Like, not everything is conservatives. There is no room for comedy anymore. Liberals don't want edgy humor to happen. Also, conservatives, every part of culture needs to be tailor-made for children and mass consumption. Everything should be a Disney movie. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Makes sense, please.
Recently, and I think you and a lot of other young parents are going to start to think, well, you know, how maybe can we create something different? Would you want to raise your kids? In a sincere question, in a world like this.
No, and I say to people all the time that follow me, I'm sincerely looking at homeschooling, making sure that my kid is not going to be polluted with this, because like I said, they are being taught this, that this is a form of freedom for women, right? As if every woman last night should have looked at that performance and said, you know.
I mean, low-key, it kind of is. And the reason why it kind of is because, like, so many conservative men just basically showcased that, like, they didn't realize that pussies were supposed to be wet. Not only that, but they were just, like, running with, like, no, pussies aren't supposed to be wet. What is this? What's going on? Liberals want to create a world in which pussies are wet. Here on the Tucker Carlson Tonight broadcast, we show you the real news, the real truth. Pussies are supposed to be dusty and dry, cobwebs within it. That's the perfect pussy that you could ever have. The one that my wife has. A dry ass P-word. A dusty ass P-word.
You know what? Before I felt like I was a bird in a cage, but after seeing that, I feel inspired. That's the real me. That's what I want to actually be in this society. Like, we're breaking away from the patriarchy. This is not the patriarchy that's keeping young women down. It's displays like this, displays of blatant nudity and sexualization that is keeping women down in this society.
They should totally cry more.
Totally degrading. And the same people who make it will lecture you about you hate women or something. But who hates women, really?
Denigrating all these dudes, dude.
Appreciate you coming on tonight. That was great. Thank you.
Hey, they're trying to create lesbians. It's another really good fucking take, dude. I love this shit. Don't know what she thinks homeschooling is gonna do when literally homeschooled her high school still ended up being gang members is still out here selling drugs and making what? Sam's looked at what happened with RBG and said, let's do that again. The Supreme Court justice doesn't need liberals to tell him he's 81. Wait, what? This is not a real fucking article title, right? There's no fucking way that this is like literally a real article title. Dude, no. Stephen Breyer has to fucking...
Denigrate all these dudes. Yeah, boom.
This border crisis narrative is incredibly annoying from the media, by the way. They are absolutely feeding into this, and they're going to cause the Democrats to behave in a totally, even in a more reactionary way than they were already going to behave. It is so incredibly manufactured. There's always been a crisis at the border. When there are humanitarian problems occurring at the border as a consequence of the conditions there, 120 degrees, they have to traverse in the desert, all that sort of stuff. And then also the American government adding on to the cruelty with the way that they choose to deal with people that are crossing the border, that are seeking asylum. There is an extra crisis on the border. There's always a crisis on the border. It's never stopped. The problem is the way media covers it. You can either cover it like you do under the Trump administration, which is somewhat honestly, from a moral grandstand point of view, like an actual honest point of view, by saying this is really messed up, this is really horrible, the way that we are treating these people is absolutely ridiculous. Or you can treat it in a way where you look at the border and you say, There's a gigantic crisis happening in the border currently, and it's really bad because so many people are coming in. So many people are coming in. So many people are coming in. What are we going to do? Depending on who is in charge, we either deal with it from the point of view of reactionary garbage, claiming that this is a huge issue, not taking an actual stance on it, but just simply channeling the right-wing agitation as they have done, just covering it as, you know, many Americans are concerned that the border is turning into a pile-on with hundreds of thousands of migrants coming in through the floodgates. Like, that's no different than what Fox News says. No different than what Fox News says. When MSNBC is saying it, or whenever, you know, the Associated Press is covering it in that way, they're doing a disservice. If they truly have a left-wing point of view in the way that, like, so many imply, then they have to recognize that simply offering contentious coverage on a particular matter does not mean that you're doing honest coverage on the issue. So, House GOP leaders head to the southern border as Democrats ready immigration bills. So Democrats are putting forward some immigration bills right now, and the hilarity here is what Kevin McCarthy, California Republican and House Minority Leader, is decided he's going to do a news conference about the U.S.-Mexico border policy outside the Capitol on Thursday, or did one, and has decided to do a field trip to the border. Remember, these guys are the same guys that laughed at AOC when she, like, went to the border camps and cried, right? So now they're going to do the exact same thing, but from the Republican side. Now they themselves are going to go and be like, oh my God, a brown person walked through an imaginary border that we had set here. Obviously, this means every American is going to be raped. All white Americans are about to be raped and murdered. We need to literally start shooting people. So that's where we're at right now with the border crisis. And the media is absolutely allowing Republicans to get away with it. This crisis of the border is spiraling out of control, McCarthy told reporters last week, and it's entirely caused by the actions of this administration. He sent a letter to Biden in early March requesting a meeting to discuss the increasing numbers of migrants at the border and work together to solve it. Like, what? What are we going to do? What are the Democrats going to do? Work together with Kevin McCarthy? Like, what? How are they going to work together? They're already, you know, overflow facilities and all this other, like, cruel shit that Democratic administrations rarely ever scale back. Wait, what's going on at the border? Absolutely nothing that is different, okay? That's the whole point that I'm trying to make here. Nothing different is happening at the border that hasn't happened in perpetuity in the United States of America. The only difference is an administration is different now, and they're going to do still the senseless cruelty on the immigrants that are trying to find a better life for themselves. But this time the media is going to act as the cudgel, or act as they are contentious, and pretty much push the administration that was already willing to do reactionary garbage to begin with to immigrants, because no one gives a shit about them. They're going to use the public opinion on immigration as a reason as to why they have to have these detention centers and why they have to do these, like, dragnet ICE raids and shit like that. That's it. Recently, Vice was on the ground at the border. The reality of reversing the Biden-Trump policy. Okay, I'll watch this. So ultimately, the biggest change here with Biden's administration versus Donald Trump so far has been processing asylum seekers and allowing them to come into the country again. Right? The Trump administration was like, nope, it's done. It's over. Because of COVID, we're, like, totally ending it. And even before that, they were like, if you come here, we're going to murder you. Okay? We're going to lock you in fucking jail for an extended period of time. You're going to have to do slave labor. Sorry, sucks to suck. And we're going to separate you from your children. We're going to do senseless cruelty to you if you try to come into this country. So the big change there is the Biden administration has said, we are processing asylum seekers. So there's still so much more going on that there's still so much that needs to be reformed on the back end. But even a little bit of that, even a little bit of reform has immediately gotten Republicans to act like, you know, the country is falling apart and they're literally burning it to the ground. And now we're going to be waving Guatemalan flags everywhere instead of the American flag, yada, yada.
With active.
You look at these cartel members, brother. You don't understand. Cartel members have changed their they've changed the way they look, brother. You think, oh, I'm sorry, you think I'm a sexist? You're willing to tell me that you don't think that these are girl boss cartel members right here, brother? Yeah, I fucking know. I know that these cartels are woke. They're SJW cartels. That's why they got women. They're trying to come in here and do queer Marxism. Republicans be like, they got shoes. Why are they coming in? Seems like they're pretty privileged to me. Looking real privileged to me. This one's got an iPhone. Dude, this video covers very little on beyond what's going on with what people are doing. Kevin McCarthy, minority leader in the House, is literally doing what AOC did, but on the other side, creating a situation that is like trying to increase the panic around migrants. This is all that the Fox News has been talking about, making it seem like there is a gigantic problem at the border, whereas that gigantic problem always existed. The media stopped covering it under Donald Trump after they were done with like migrant detention centers for children because they covered it too much. So now they're like, or they think they covered it too much. They covered it into the ground. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Iraq-Afghanistan wars where they just stopped. They didn't want to show veterans in coffins, so they didn't want to show like the actual bloodbath that was going on. So they stopped covering it. You know, after a while, they were like, this is just the reality now. It's going to happen. This cruelty is going to happen. We're just not going to talk about it. Puerto Rico is another example. Oftentimes, it's just when brown people are victims, the media just moves away. They talk about it for a little bit. They make it seem like it's the worst thing that's ever happened, and usually it is. And then they move away from it. This week, the House will begin consideration of 2 bills aimed at amending the immigration system. The first is the American Dream and Promise Act that would establish a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants brought to the country as children, otherwise known as dreamers. It would also include a pathway to citizenship for people granted temporary protected status, along with those who were recipients of the Deferred Enforcement Departure as of January 20th, 2021. There is also a Farm Workforce Modernization Act, which would create a system in which a worker in agricultural industry could earn temporary status and eventual option to become a permanent resident. Neither of these bills are going to pass. I'm telling you right now, they're deeply popular bills. Americans want this. There is like, depending on what part of the bill we're talking about, there is either 75 on the minimum to 90% support for this, 90% being for the DACA immigrants and the pathway to citizenship for DACA immigrants, 75% for amnesty overall, or conditional amnesty overall for Americans. But it's also the bread and butter of the Republicans. And also, they believe that this is a way to create more Democratic voters, so they're going to oppose this as best as they can. And also, it goes along with their, you know, white nativist, white supremacist policy position. So 0% shot that this gets pushed through the Senate. It's just not going to happen. Both bills have strong support from Democrats and passed the lower chamber in 2019. It's unclear how they would fare in the Senate because they would need Republican support. The bills represent a more targeted approach at passing immigration legislation than Biden's comprehensive immigration proposal, the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021, which would face significant opposition by Republicans in the Senate. If you ask me, what they should do, what Democrats should do, is precisely what they have done, or precisely what Republicans do, which is go off balls to the wall with an aggressive policy agenda. Say we're going to do full unconditional amnesty and then work your way down. But they're not going to do that, and they're going to cuck themselves already. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I am legitimately fearful that the Democrats are going to completely give up on covering immigrants. We'll see.
The Biden administration now facing criticism over a very different emergency, with help deployed along the southern border. FEMA sent to organize suitable shelter after a surge of migrants at the border. 3,200 children crossing alone last week. Republicans charge this is a crisis brought on by a more migrant-friendly immigration policy under President Biden.
People think they can get in. They begin sending their unaccompanied child on a train ride across Mexico. This policy is leading to this surge that is unmistakable.
The White House acknowledged.
First of all, completely incorrect. Secondly, it doesn't even fucking matter. Let's say if it is correct. Let's say that people are so goddamn scared. It's a backlog. That's the reason why it seems like a surge is occurring, because no migrants were being allowed into the country, right? But let's say that they are literally sending their children here. Okay. What's the alternative? Killing them? Like, what are you, fucking crazy? Take care of the goddamn kids, you dumbass. What the fuck is your problem? Like, we're the wealthiest nation on earth. Like, this is something that I will never understand. It's something that it just does not fit my brain. This notion that like, oh, well, people are literally sending their children here because it's a better future for them here, despite the kind of senseless cruelty that we subject them to in a way to deter others from coming into the country. Despite all that, they still believe that there's a better shot for them here. But we just got to deal with it. We got to fucking lock them up and, like, you know, harm them and shit.
There are now too many children at Border Patrol stations.
We inherited a real lack of capacity. It's hard to ramp up that capacity. You can't just take children and put them in a hotel room. They need to be in a place where they are safely protected. They need to be in a place with staff.
Hotels are notoriously not that
House Republican Kevin
Which
McCarthy.
is why we need to put them in prison. We literally have to put these kids in prison because we can't put them in a hotel. Because, you know, think about it. They're gonna see stuff on the television. They're gonna order too much room service. I mean, there's a lot of stuff the kids could do. Guys, there isn't like literally a fuckload of hotels that are empty that would benefit tremendously from restructuring and being repurposed into facilities that house like migrants that come into the country, or even homeless shelters, by the way, on top of that, with actual staff members getting appropriate training that they could use in the future to deal with migrant children, things like that. That would all be genuinely terrible. Like, that would be the worst thing you could do, okay? Home Alone 2 was a cautionary tale about migrant children.
But stop short.
Yeah, they're gonna see titties on HBO. First of all, yeah, what if the kids purchase HBO packages, okay? And what if the HBO package also shows booba? In which case the child is over. I mean, he's traumatized. They saw booba. I'm just saying, boys, what is not traumatizing for these children is putting them in fucking prisons, okay? And also, they're not prison.
Sure.
Hello?
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing pretty all right. I may have had a little bit too much coffee this morning. I didn't sleep. My sleep schedule's been thrown totally off. So I like I said to you, I downed my third cup of coffee, and now I got the jitters a little bit. But other than that, I'm doing great.
Nice. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Wait, are you Canadian by chance?
Yes, I am.
All right, okay. Oh, that's right. You're
yeah.
I don't want to say, but yeah, your email account. I remember there was something in
No,
it.
yeah, you can say if you are, if it's because of the YouTube or whatever, you get in trouble from YouTube for I don't know.
Nah, YouTube's pretty lenient about this stuff.
right,
So wait, I want to lay it out right on the front, okay? I am referring to you very kindly as a Nat soak in this conversation, but YouTube titles have to be kept short, so that might end up getting truncated to Nazi, depending on how this conversation goes, okay?
Hey man, you know, it's your show, it's your channel, you know, you can, if it does, you know, it's up to you.
Okay, National Socialist Canadian Labour Revival Party. There we go. All right, trying to revive Canada. Back to the glory of its indigenous roots, no doubt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The glory of its Siberian immigrant roots, right?
I don't even know enough about Canadian indigenous history to make a joke here.
Our quote-unquote indigenous native population traversed the ice bridge from Siberia about 12,000 years ago. They're not really indigenous to North America.
I'll have to look that one up.
Siberia. Yeah, Siberia.
Okay, you know what? I'll look that one up. We can fight over ownership rights a little bit later, though. I need to
yeah, for sure.
Look up who crossed the ice bridges and when, and we can maybe get some like skin tone registries on the people who crossed that ice bridge.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah,
so you emailed me. With you wanted to talk about open border policy, LGBT rights, and race relations in the Western world.
Sure, for sure.
Buyer's choice. Which one do you want to hop on into first?
We could start with let's start with something exciting. Let's talk about race relations in the Western world.
I love race relations in the Western world. Yeah, hit me up. What's your do you want to state your position or shall I state mine?
It's your show. If you want to give me the go-ahead to go first, I'll go first. If you want to go first, you can go first. I'm pretty easygoing.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll just take it real quick. My position is that while there are some racial conflicts in the Western world, I think that a lot of them are a product of deliberate disinfo, and that it's entirely possible for societies to exist without racial tension. I think that we generally benefit from diversity, and it's a policy that I'd like to continue into the future.
All right, I hold essentially the exact opposite position in that I believe that the impetus for the development of societies and cultures rests in the biological essentialisms of a people, be that the genetics of a people, and I've got a couple of sources that I can share with you about that because I'm pretty sure you guys like asking for sources.
We do,
right? You need to have your 12 peer-reviewed independent studies, or else I'm not listening.
Well, I mean,
so I've got a handful.
If we're talking essentialist claims on the nature of human biology, then I think it's probably good to support that with some kind of academic literature.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, and that's why my position is a little bit more nuanced than a lot of these other guys you see on the internet, who just like yelling racial slurs and saying like we're gonna, let's inflict violence or do this or that. I don't share that position. I actually I hold the position that further scientific inquiry, further genetic sequencing is necessary before we make a definitive call on policy in the future regarding race and the way that we interact with one another as societies and as developments.
So what do you want to do right now then? I mean, what's wrong?
I want to bring you a little bit closer to my side and see if we can throw a little bit more nuance into some of your positions on race and race relations.
No, sure, but like in terms of like
in terms of what I like,
what would you change about America? I mean, let's say America, because I like America,
let's say,
land of the free.
Say, what I'd change about America, well, it seems to me a perfectly reasonable observation that a single representative government, it can't possibly represent the interests of widely divergent groups. That it would probably be, in the case of America, and this is exclusively America, which I don't necessarily concern myself with too much, but in the case of America, I think that the fairest solution would be to cede a state or two to the African American population and allow them the right to self-determination and the ability to govern themselves.
Wait, what?
That's my solution for the American issue.
What's the point of a democracy if rather than having a single government to unify the interests of a people, you just split the state down the line of people who disagree on issues? Like, couldn't we split any groups of people?
Well, of course we. Well, that's what democracy does, doesn't it? At least in the modern world, you have divisions between men and women, between class, between any.
Should we just split these groups? Like, we can't resolve it through the processes?
They're already split. You have politicians who appeal to women. You have politicians and policies who appeal to the working class, to the rich, to...
But they're all part of America. I mean, they're all part of the democratic process. Why shouldn't black people be allowed to participate in it?
Well, if they want to, they can, but I think that it would be more fair. It would resolve the issues that they seem to have, because in order to accomplish under a single system the sort of future you imagine, where everybody gets along and there are no more issues like that, you would have to have the at least current racial majorities cede or concede on multiple different issues in order to appease the minority.
Yeah, we did that when we got rid of slavery too. I mean, that's part of democracy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, for sure. But the issue I see is that, at least based off of my observations when it comes to the African American question in the United States, is that their complaints are no longer justifiable.
Like what complaints?
Well, the last year with the Black Lives Matter protests, and I know that you're a huge supporter of that, and that's your choice, and that's totally cool. But from where I see, where I sit as an observer, and what I've seen of these incidents that sort of act as the impetus to set off these protests or riots, is individuals acting very, very poorly in the middle of an arrest and behaving in a way that would, if you were a private citizen, would be totally justified in taking a person's life, but because these
Wait,
people are
with George
civil
Floyd?
servants. Well, I mean, George Floyd,
We're already down the rabbit hole a couple of points here. So first
for
of all,
sure.
the idea that the best way to resolve conflicts in a democracy would be to create an ethno-state because you believe that the values held by a minority group are no longer tenable, I think is pretty ridiculous. I think the most untenable positions that are held in this country right now are held by white evangelical conservatives. I mean, for God's sake, they don't even think Trump lost the election. They stormed the Capitol building. If we want to talk about being divorced from reality, like climate change denial, then we're easily talking about white evangelicals being the group most deserving of being excised from the American Democratic electorate. Now, I don't believe in that, mind you. I think we should all get to participate. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be able to, but
for sure.
I don't see how any issues with race relations would be fixed by giving black people a couple of states. I mean, for one, it certainly wouldn't fix racism. Racism is at its worst in ethnically homogenous communities, like very white
For
areas.
sure, but you're never going to be able to eliminate racism. It's never
why not? Well, we can mostly eliminate it. We can't ever really get rid of heightism. I mean, there's always going to be some bigotry.
You can re-educate people generation by generation by generation. But if you were to skip a generation in education, then people are going to revert back to what comes natural.
The natural state of humanity isn't racism.
Well, I would beg to disagree with you
that's
on
okay,
that.
but you'd be wrong.
No, I wouldn't be wrong.
Our modern
conception
of racism is about 400 years old. Back before then, Socrates and Plato and other like Greek philosophers, they didn't think of race the way we did. They thought that the races were the thick-blooded Nords with their large skulls and their slow wits, and the thin-blooded Arabs with their quick wits and their dark skin. They didn't think of the world as split between white and black people.
I don't think of the world as being split between white or black people either, but the fact of the matter is that infants can identify people of separate ethnicities and react negatively to them.
Wait.
And it's only through...
They can do that with men and women, too. Like, infants
sure.
can recognize lots of characteristics. That doesn't mean that
For
society
sure.
will organize around, like, hatred between those groups.
Well, I would argue that the ability of an infant to differentiate between those who look like them and those who do not look like them is an evolutionary trait held over from. Well, I care.
Wait, so hold on. It's funny that you're taking the assumption that racism and racial apartheid are the default states of humanity when
they have been for
absolutely
not.
not.
Yeah, they absolutely were.
No, civilizations hundreds of years ago didn't organize themselves along racial castes the way that we do today. Our modern conceptualization of race is just that. Modern.
Well,
Before
you can look at plenty of different civilizations, such
with
as
different
the
types
Hindu,
of hierarchies, but not
With different-
organized
yeah.
along the ones that we have today. It seems like
the Indo-Aryan or Hindu or Eastern Indian society has organized themselves along ethnic and racial lines,
but not the ones we would arrange them along, because if Americans looked at all...
because they are of a different race.
Yeah,
than
if
us.
Americans looked at them all today, they would just call them brown people. Our understanding of race is culturally determined, and it's funny that you're taking the default position. Racism has to be taught. You act as though if we skip a generation of education, people are going to like revert back to being racist. The opposite is true.
If this isn't the case, then
I'm not
why
trying
is
to.
there a constant push
I'm not
in
trying
media
to.
and education to
Hold on.
specifically eliminate racism?
I'm not trying to teach people anti-racism. I'm trying to keep people like you from teaching racism. The default human is better than the human you raise.
I asked you a question. If what you're saying is true, why is there such a massive push to eliminate racism? If racism, or at least the recognition of differentiations between one group and another, that even a child knows that they are
A child knows. Wait, no, hold on, wait. I can't keep letting you go. Wait, no, please stop. Children can recognize.
I haven't even finished the point
Children
yet,
can
Vosh.
recognize that skin tones are different.
I haven't even finished the point yet, Vosh.
That's not the same as children recognizing all of the inherent racial differences you're ascribing to them. Children just can see skin
I haven't
tones are different.
ascribed anything yet. I haven't even finished the point yet.
Okay, finish your point, then I'll respond.
My point is that if what you're saying is true, and that racism is not, at least on some level, an inherent trait to differentiate the external from the internal, the in-group from the out-group, to say, I can trust these people. This is, from tribal civilization 60,000 years ago. To be able to differentiate between your group and another group is a very, very important trait if you wanted to survive 60,000 years ago. And I'm sorry to tell you, but 50 years of social justice isn't going to undo all of the factors that led up to this.
Do you
point
think
in human
tribes were
history.
fighting over race? They would have all been the same skin
I never
tone.
said that. I never said that. What I said was the ability to differentiate between the internal and external from the in-group and out-group is race. It is race. Racism, that is what it is now. We're differentiating between skin color, but it's the difference by degrees is so minimal between differentiating between another tribe and your own tribe. It's the ability to perceive the internal and external, the out-group from the in-group.
Okay,
and that's
so
always going to be a factor.
there are a couple of points that we have to address here. First of all, you're conflating tribalism and racism. Tribalism is an innate part of human organization, but that applies to like different high school sports teams. That applies to different families. That applies to people from different cliques in high school, the goths versus the jocks. Tribalism is a human characteristic. We're never going to get rid of it. The best thing we can do is try to teach people to respond to it responsibly.
I would say that
Wait,
your point
hold on. So you keep conflating that natural characteristic with racism. Our understanding of racism, the way we think of racism today, the way you think of racism, is
Well, you don't know how I think of racism.
I can take a rough guess.
You'd be wrong, probably.
Hold on. Is vanishingly new, okay? Now, humans have been organizing themselves into hierarchies for a long time, but not necessarily racial ones. So the reason why media teaches anti-racism is in large part because people like you still exist, and because we're not that far off from black people being literal second-class citizens here in America. I mean, for God's sake, there are people alive today who had to be force integrated into like the Arkansas schools, you know? We are not that far off from them being literal second-class citizens, and the people who were throwing rocks at those little girls being sent into school are also still alive. The idea that like we already lived in some like neutral post-racial society and then the social justice warriors came in to fix it, that is not true. We just had an openly racist president rule this country for 4 years, and an openly racist political party support his every decision. The idea, we're not fighting against a mankind's natural order. We're fighting against people like you who organize politically to disseminate disinformation and spread racial hate.
Well, I haven't disseminated any misinformation.
You already have a
yet,
couple of times in this conversation, yeah.
I actually haven't. Just because you call it something doesn't make it so. And that's an important thing to remember. Now, you've made a handful of points, but I'm going to go back and address, and I'll try to address them one by one, but
Can we go over them one by one, because otherwise it just turns into one block at a time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, you made mention of high school football teams and the goth clique and this and that, and I'd argue that those manifestations of tribalism only exist because we've broken down any meaningful connection to one's own identity. That these things are a manifestation of a desire to belong to something, where the ability to belong to something essential, which would be race and ethnicity and culture and history, to belong to that group has become stigmatized and made taboo in the modern world over the last 70 years.
So
there's
white
been a progressive
supremacists don't play football? Wait, what?
Don't play that game with
No,
me.
wait,
That's
you're saying
not what
the
I
only
said.
reason
No,
people
no, no,
engage
no,
in
no,
petty
no, no.
tribalism
That
is to
isn't what I
compensate.
said. That isn't what I said. What I said was that these people, as a sort of ersatz identity, drift towards different cliques. You mentioned goth. You mentioned, I think, something else, cheerleaders, football players. That's not part and parcel to saying that white supremacists don't or do not do something.
You're saying the only reason they join these cliques.
That's a fallacy. No, that's not the only. No, you're misconstruing what I said, Vosh. What I said was that the manifestation of these identities. Now let's ignore football for a second, but goth and these different subcultures. I'm having a hard time remembering. It's been a while since I was in high school. I was a goth kid. I'm trying to remember what other cliques there were. Skater kids, the gangster.
I'm sorry
clique,
you
all
forgot
these
your
different
history in
identities.
high school, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it was a long time ago. But all of these different cliques are a manifestation of the desire to belong to something, and when the essential properties of
Jesus.
So,
I just
as
keep
you
going
know,
back for more.
I think most everybody knows. The jury's being selected for the trial of Derek Chauvin. He was initially charged with first-degree and second-degree murder. A judge ultimately tried to prevent, and then I guess it was allowed, that he could also be charged with third-degree murder. Now, I don't know how. I mean, I presume this was obvious to everyone who was, above the age of, I don't know, 20, 21, maybe 15, that first-degree murder is a more serious charge, a harder to prove charge than second-degree murder. Second-degree murder, not all states, I think, have third-degree murder, or call it that. Second-degree murder is a more serious charge and harder to prove than third-degree murder, right? It's like, if you can prove first-degree murder, it's more serious. You don't need to prove second and third-degree murder. They become extraneous at that. But a prosecutor going into a case will sometimes provide multiple charges, try and prove each one of those charges because the threshold is lower in terms of the intent or the forethought or the behavior of the alleged perpetrator. Now, why am I telling you this remedial stuff that most of you already know because you watched one crime drama once, or you read one article once, or you just get that by osmosis by being an adult? Well, Dave Rubin, my understanding, is above the age of 30. I mean, I don't know how old Dave Rubin is, but listen to this. He's got a theory that because he read, I know exactly the article he read too. He read this CNN article because I saw him do, well, just read, play this.
That's the point, that if they had gone for the first degree and second degree, virtually everybody across the political spectrum and all over the world would have said justice was done here if he was convicted of those two things. But now by taking this leap, they're setting us up for further destruction. They're setting us up for further upheaval. But in essence, you're making a great point here that Attorney General Keith Ellison, he's ramping up a charge that sounds like it will be very hard to convict on. So I think he's intentionally going with this high charge, and short of a full conviction, and I think whatever that means, even if there was a full conviction, they would still find a way to go ahead with the violence they have planned, because that's part of the battle right now. It's not just a legal battle, it's a cultural battle.
So let me be clear on what he's saying here, because he had another clip on his own show, like a day before, where he was making the same case, that the third-degree charge was brought in because it would be too steep a hill to climb. And therefore, people, once he got convicted of first and second-degree murder, according to Dave Rubin, third-degree they wouldn't be able to convict him of, which was a lesser offense. It has a different, instead of like an intent to kill, it's like I believe it's like a reckless disregard in Minnesota state law, reckless disregard for human life, and that they wouldn't be able to prove that, and that's what would be the premise of the rioting, and of course that is wrong. Here it is the other day. Here's what he did the other day.
But in essence, he now is going for a third-degree murder charge. And what's happening is you can sort of see that this whole thing is being set up so he's going to get acquitted, basically, of third-degree murder, because third-degree murder, without getting too much into all of the specifics, but you should do a little Googling on your own. In essence, third-degree murder is like if you drove your car intentionally into a crowd of people to kill a lot of people, or you started firing into a crowd intentionally, just maiming people. First degree and second degree, that's probably what's more applicable in this. But Keith Ellison is throwing that third degree charge in there in a way, in my estimation at least, because he wants riots and he knows that this will make it harder to convict. And thus, when he doesn't get convicted of all of the things, even if he gets convicted of first degree and second degree murder, which probably will happen, if he doesn't get convicted of third degree, that will be the excuse for the violence. And it is my belief at this point that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party wants violence. They want there to be mayhem. Those are their foot soldiers.
Yes, Keith Ellison, he coincidentally the black attorney general, he's just, stoking
Muslim
the,
too.
he wants violence.
Yeah,
obviously.
it's so dumb.
No,
in
he
my
thinks,
defense, can we just focus on what's going on?
Yes.
And there's a CNN piece. If you Google it, you'll find the CNN piece he read, because that's where the example comes from that he gives, right?
I thought he was Googling first degree burn. I think he's just
and he stopped
Right, that's
reading.
what he thinks it is.
Yes.
No,
He
but
doesn't
third-degree burns are worse.
Yes.
Right, that's
what
what
I'm
he
saying.
thinks it is.
He thinks it's reverse.
Yeah,
Right.
he thinks a third-degree murder is the worst because it
Yeah,
builds
well-
on each other, like burns, like Noe said.
I was actually thinking about black belts, and is it not true that a third-degree black belt is harder to get than a first-degree one? I rest my case.
First grade, then second
What's
grade,
also
then
awesome?
third grade.
So this guy, he did the second video he did, I think at least a day before he appeared on whatever Newsmax or OWN or whatever that was. So there's nobody, either none of his fans were like, hey Dave, just heads up, you got it backwards, man. It's backwards. Your whole theory is half-baked. Or he doesn't pay attention on his locals. This is so you can contact me. Pay $500, you can contact me. Or just no one around him either pays attention to what he says or is smart enough to realize, like, hey, wait a second, man. No, you got it backwards. You got it. Your whole theory is completely wrong because you have it completely backwards. Nobody told him. Nobody told him in 24 hours. And he must not check Twitter because people were laughing at him for days.
Well, the Democrats aren't going to be happy until there's a 4th-degree murder, then a 5th-degree murder, then a 6th-degree murder.
Just gonna keep laying them on. Numbers after numbers.
The radical Democrats want 10 degrees of murder.
And violence on the streets. What I don't understand is, aren't they all supposed to get the same talking points? Why is it Dave Rubin is always left off the list?
Because he's not in the club. No one wants to hang out with this dude who's not, we've said this all the time. He wants so badly to be buddies with Ben Shapiro, but Ben Shapiro is pretty, icked out that he's a man that sleeps with another man.
And I would imagine, too, that it's like when he's like, can I get some talking points? Glenn Beck's like, it doesn't matter what you say.
Also, I wonder how that dynamic is, because I think how do you think Dave actually feels about Glenn Beck?
Oh, I think that Dave is. I don't know. I don't know him personally. But all I can imagine is just great guy, very good businessman.
Right. Well, yeah, he's a.
taking the win. Hardly confidence of
One of the few great things that came out of the Trump era was that Larry Kudlow got his TV show back, I think. And right? Didn't he get his TV show back?
Well, he got a new TV show. Wasn't he on CNBC before? And now he's the replacement for the very unhinged Lou Dobbs, who got kicked off because he was spreading
He didn't get the same TV show back, but he got a TV show back.
He got his hour, I think, or he got
but
got
he's
his
on
slot.
Fox Business, so he gets to show up on all these TV shows. And Kudlow, and I did his show a couple of times when he was on CNBC back in the day. His answer for everything was to cut taxes, cut taxes, cut taxes, cut taxes. Well, he's back on it. It didn't seem to necessarily do very well for us with the.
He didn't learn any new tricks in the
He
Trump
didn't learn any new
administration?
tricks.
No.
Here he is with Laura Ingraham, and this is in response to the reports that we talked about yesterday briefly, that the Democrats are going to be looking to increase taxes on wealthy people and corporations to levels in a way that we haven't seen since 1993. That Janet Yellen was floating the idea of an international accord to get a baseline for corporate taxes so that all countries could raise their corporate taxes without getting engaged in a race to the bottom in terms of trying to attract industry. So here's Larry Kudlow on with Laura Ingraham, spreading the fable that the way you raise tax revenue is by cutting taxes on corporation and wealthy people.
Damaged wealthy people also. This business about paying their fair share, the way you get upper income people to pay more in taxes is lower their tax rate. Not only will they have investment incentives, they will also have no tax avoidance. So they never tell you that. But the evidence is very clear. And to say this is just big corporations as though they were bad, or they're going to take away the deduction for small businesses too, they're not bad. That's just a straw horse. It's a red herring. It's a Trojan horse. This is democratic social policy, redistribution, and all it will do, Laura, all it will do is take a good recovery in 2021 and stop it dead in its tracks in 22 and 23 and beyond if it gets through the Congress.
It's a slippery dilemma. It's a false slope. I'm just going to mix them all up in a jar and see what comes out.
I mean, aside from his inability to deploy some basic idioms, the idea that if we lower taxes on wealthy people, they will not engage in tax avoidance and they will pay more taxes is absurd on its face, because they don't care what the tax rate is. They just don't want to pay a certain amount of money. They're not going to pay more money because they don't have to pay as much in taxes. It doesn't make sense.
Is he
but
is
aside
he
from that,
saying that they're going to donate their money to the government? I mean, that's
He's
the only
saying-
way it could generate more revenue. But he's just retreading and desperately clawing at 40 years of failed trickle-down economic tropes that is just, regurgitating in his brain.
Indeed. And as far as the idea of lowering taxes and driving revenue, you really only need to say one word to dispel that myth, and that is Kansas. People can go back and look at Sam Brownback's Kansas, where he brought in the original godfather of this concept, that if you lower taxes, you will get more tax revenue, Arthur Laffer, who developed the laughable Laffer curve. And they brought him in, they cut taxes on individuals, they cut taxes on corporations in Kansas, and lo and behold, what happened once they cut these taxes? They actually got less tax revenue, so much less tax revenue that they had to cleave huge parts of the Kansas education, public education, Kansas higher education, and so much so that they ended up, a Republican legislature ended up raising taxes, and Sam Brownback, they basically jettisoned him into the ether by appointing him during the Trump administration as a way of basically burying this narrative. They appointed him to be ambassador to faith. That's not a joke.
I know.
He's
I know.
literally appointed to ambassador to faith and then never heard of again. Like they kept him floating somewhere in the atmosphere, I guess, because they didn't want this story of Kansas to get out. And I have to say, it's a failure of the Democrats to have not
Well,
to have
it's
not
good
exploited it more.
PR by the Republicans, if nothing else, right? I mean, and again, just the Kudlow way of thinking. They tried this in the Trump administration. They said the tax cuts would pay for themselves, knowing that they wouldn't. Less taxes on the wealthy means less tax revenue. You don't need to be an economics major to understand that. But it's pathological at this point. Kudlow's got no other mode because, you know, it's like a greed-soaked mind.
Yes, he has one tune. He sings it over and over again, and I gotta say, it's done him well. He's been fairly successful with it.
The best people get
It's kept him soaked in many ways.
Yeah, right.
Indeed.
Well, soaked in different ways, yes.
Hey everybody, welcome to A Late Show.
No,
I
not too
am
loud.
your host, Stephen Colbert. We got
Get outta
a
here.
hell of a show tonight. Lupita's coming to us from
I said go away. Thank you. Okay. Good night, streamling.